Chapter 1. You are listening at novelful.audio. Messy bedroom, a wooden bed. Ugh, my head is killing me. Am I still alive? Tian's jumbled thoughts slowly began to clear, and memories of his past life surfaced. Then, a rush of new memories flooded his mind. So, I've crossed over. He smiled wryly. This body wasn't his, but belonged to a young man who shared his name. He was from 2019. Now it was 2119, the dawn of the 22nd century, 100 years into the future, also known as the Age of Genki, or the Age of Talent. Piece by piece, Tian processed the information about the last century. Starting in 2019, spatial rifts had torn open across Earth, unleashing hordes of savage beasts. Humans were instantly knocked off the top of the food chain. Struggling to survive, they tried to fight back with weapons, but a mysterious energy, later called Yuan Qi, permeated the world. This energy disrupted the structure of conventional weapons, rendering them useless. Even nuclear bombs were reduced to scrap. Humanity was plunged into a new dark age. Weak humans wielding crude weapons were no match for the beasts. Luckily, the first wave of beasts were relatively weak, giving humanity a chance to adapt. Scientists discovered that humans could harness the new energy. And with that, a new profession was born: warriors. Honing their bodies, absorbing Yuan Qi, and breaking the limits of human potential. Simultaneously, humanity's hidden potential awakened. A small number of people developed talents. The most common was cultivation talent, which determined a person's potential. But there were other talents, like sword talent, flame talent, ice talent, and more. With talent and martial arts, humans slowly began to push back against the beasts. However, most of the planet was overrun. Humans were confined to small pockets of territory, establishing survival bases one after another. Notably, the Earth itself had expanded, becoming vastly larger under the influence of Yuan Qi, hundreds of times its original size. Yuan Qi, talents, beasts, what a world. Tian took a deep breath, then grinned. Maybe coming to this era wouldn't be so bad, but his expression quickly turned serious. When the rifts opened and Yuan Qi flooded the planet, a tiny fraction of people awakened their talents that night. Cultivation talent was innate, but other talents could be awakened later. But back then, awakening a talent wasn't a blessing. It was a curse. Without a strong body, the surge of power would kill you. Records say many people were destroyed by their own talents, either dying or being crippled. So, I must have awakened some crazy talent that literally exploded me. Tian knew he had absorbed too much Yuan Qi, his body couldn't handle it, and he had exploded. What kind of talent could do that? Even if people couldn't handle the power, they usually just swelled up and died, or got crippled. Whatever I awakened had to be insane. Too bad I can't even remember. After sorting through the memories, Tian finally turned his attention to his current body. It was a 15-year-old body, prime time to start cultivating. Before 15, the body wasn't developed enough for training, unless wealthy families used special elixirs to speed up the process. 15 was considered the golden age. If you waited until you were 20, even with high talent, your potential would be severely limited. Thank God it's not some old geezer's body. Wait. Tian's face changed again. He suddenly remembered something else. The body's talent, it was incredibly low, a weak talent. The most important talent in this era was cultivation talent. From lowest to highest, they were weak, inferior, primary, medium, and high. Supposedly there were even higher tiers, but Tian had no way of knowing for sure. Anyone at least 15 could buy a talent stone to check their cultivation talent. Other talents required special stones. Before, this body had been so excited to turn 15. He bought a talent stone, eager to check his potential. But then he found out he had weak talent, and in a fit of despair, he died, clearing the way for Tian. Damn it! Weak talent. That's the worst. There's no hope of even becoming a martial artist. Tian felt a wave of despair wash over him. Martial apprentice and martial artist were the first two realms of cultivation. Martial apprentice was not the real realm. Martial artist was the real first realm, and you can become a martial artist with the power of 1,000 caddies. To become a martial artist, you needed at least inferior talent. Anything less and you were stuck as a martial apprentice forever. Inferior talent was a level higher than the weak talent, but in the end, his life is just barely the early stage of becoming a martial artist. If only I could change my talent. Tian sighed, knock, 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 knock on the door. Brother, are you in there? A young girl's voice came from outside. Tian knew it was his younger sister, Yu, who was 13. He opened the door and saw a cute girl with a porcelain doll face. Brother, what's your talent? Yu asked curiously. Talent was a closely guarded secret. Unless you were close, asking about it was a provocation. Nobody wanted their talent exposed, especially if it was high, as that could attract assassins. It had happened before, which was why people usually didn't ask, but Tian didn't blame his sister. It's great, Xiaoyu. I'm going to be a powerful martial artist someday. Tian smiled at her, but his laughter was tinged with bitterness, and then, his eyes widened, a virtual image appeared on his retina. Human, Yu, cultivation talent, inferior, ice talent, elementary, unawakened. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's going on? Tian was totally confused. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, but he quickly realized what he was seeing was real. The data plastered on his vision was real, no hallucination. A system? Nah, this has gotta be my hidden talent. Tian considered it for a moment. Yu was only 13 and hadn't even started training yet. Since talent is something you're born with, it made sense that she'd have it, and a decent one at that. As for the ice talent, that was something else entirely. It was rare, 1 in a million. If she unlocked it later, she'd crush anyone her own level, and might even take down opponents way stronger. They say becoming a martial artist unlocks your potential and gradually uncovers hidden talents. But hardly anyone gets a second one. I can't believe my sister has such a rare ice talent. But is my talent just the ability to see other people's talents? Tian felt like there had to be more to it. He started running some tests. When he focused on his sister, he saw a copy icon next to her cultivation talent on the screen. In other words, he could copy her second-class cultivation talent. However, the ice talent was still locked, so he couldn't copy that. Copy? Faced with the option, Tian said absolutely not. Even though her talent was better than his, it was still garbage. Copying it wouldn't do him any good. After saying goodbye to his sister, Tian stayed in his room to analyze his own situation. I can see my sister's talent, so I should be able to see mine, right? Tian muttered. He concentrated on himself. Soon, his talent information appeared. Human, Tian, cultivation talent, weak. That was it. No hidden talents. In this era, he was just a standard nobody, barely better than someone with no talent at all. Okay, now I have the basics. This magical ability probably caused my first self to pop like a grape and brought me here. I'll call this talent copy. I can copy other people's talents, but whether I can replace my own or merge them, I'll have to test. Also, copying requires physical touch, which kinda sucks, but maybe that'll change in the future. That with a plan in mind, Tian knew he had to copy a real genius's cultivation talent. Otherwise, with his current weak talent, he'd never reach the martial artist level, and if he didn't become a martial artist, his future would be bleak. Tian's parents were killed by beasts a year ago, leaving just him and his sister. It was a common story. In this era, humans struggled to survive, and families were broken every minute. He lived in a small base called Linhai, with a population of 300,000, including only about 1,000 martial artists. Martial artists had privileges that ordinary people couldn't dream of. His parents had been martial artists, but they died on a mission in the wilderness. Even in death, the base provided some support, like subsidies until he turned 15, enough to keep them afloat, but once you turn 15, the subsidies stopped. Tian was now 15, so he was cut off. Only Yi received support, and it was barely enough for one person. They were too young to earn money, so they had to drop out of school early to save money. At the Linhai base, you could attend school from 9 to 15, but there were no elementary, middle, or high schools like before the end. They learned language, math, and some beast knowledge. He and Yi had learned enough, so dropping out wasn't a big deal. My parents left something behind. It's not much, but it's enough for a few years. But without becoming a martial artist, I'd have to work for someone else. Work? No way. Never gonna happen. Becoming a warrior was the only path forward. Time to hit the streets. Having made up his mind, Tian told his sister to stay home and went out. The street was bustling with people, mostly ordinary folks and a few martial artists. These martial artists had an aura about them. Just getting close made it hard to breathe. Trash talent. Trash talent. Weak talent. Trash talent. Tian strolled around and found mostly weak and inferior talents. He barely saw a few average talents, let alone martial artists. Looks like average talents are something special here in Linhai. Tian frowned, but it made sense. Linhai was just a small base. The strongest guy here was just a great martial artist. Second-class talents can only reach the beginning stages of a martial artist, and average talents can be martial artists with the hope of becoming an elite martial artist. Medium talents can reach the elite martial artist realm, with some reaching the great martial artist realm. The great martial artist at Linhai base was already old, and probably had a medium talent. Medium talent. I need to find at least a medium talent to copy. I can't get near those martial artists, or they might kill me if I touch them. Even if a martial artist kills an ordinary person, they'd only get a small fine, especially since I don't have any backing. No one would stand up for me. So, I can't risk trying to copy a martial artist's talent. There are 300,000 people in this base. My copy talent only works within 10 feet. That's tiny. Checking everyone one by one would take forever. The best way is to find someone in a specific location and ask which martial artist is leveling the fastest, then check out their talent. As long as they have a medium or higher talent, I'll copy it. I refuse to believe there's not even one medium talent in this whole base. The martial arts apprentices are mostly concentrated in the major academies. There are 5 academies in Linhai. If you're 15, you can attend any of them except for the Linhai First Academy, which requires at least an average talent or some connections. The rest will take you if you pay. The original me wanted an average talent so he could go to the First Academy. But now, even if I get an average talent, I wouldn't dare to go to the First Academy. They test your talent, and if they found out mine could grow stronger later, they'd dissect me to study it. Tian sighed. Now, he had no choice but to attend one of the other academies, and he had to go to an academy. Otherwise, he couldn't learn how to train or absorb vitality. He had to practice body forging to reach at least 1,000 pounds of strength and become a martial artist. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 5th Academy, Training Ground Number 3. To become a martial artist, you need talent. Most of you won't make it. But if you do, you'll have far more opportunities than ordinary folks. Your job prospects will be way better. And to become a martial artist, you have to master the body forging method. A middle-aged instructor lectured a group of trainees. The students listened intently. They were all commoners, and the academy was their only shot at learning the body forging method. A single mistake could stall their progress or even injure them. Tian was among them. 10 days into his studies at the 5th Academy, for 10 days, the instructor had drilled them on the forging method, demonstrating the 18 movements. Perhaps because of the transmigration, Tian's mind was sharper than most. His memory was excellent. In those 10 days, he'd nailed all 18 movements, down to the smallest detail. Other students would need a month or 2 to reach that level of proficiency. Of course, hiring a private tutor would speed things up, but that was beyond the means of most. Complete mastery of the body forging method is essential before you can formally begin cultivating. This is the first movement. The instructor meticulously demonstrated each movement. An hour later, the lesson ended, and the students filed out. Tian, how's it going? I've mastered 13 moves. I'll be ready to cultivate the body forging method any day now. A chubby kid stopped Tian, beaming. The kid, Zhang Bao, was a classmate Tian had befriended during his first 10 days. I've only got 8 down. Tian downplayed his progress. He didn't want to reveal that he'd mastered all 18. That would only cause trouble, and having just arrived in this era, it was best to keep a low profile. Keep at it. I know you can do it. We're gonna be powerful warriors someday. Zhang Bao encouraged, but Tian detected a hint of resignation, even despair, lurking in Zhang Bao's eyes. Maybe, Tian said, smiling. He'd copied Zhang Bao's talent and knew it was only second-rate. With that, he might become a martial artist, but it would require tremendous time and resources. Zhang Bao wasn't from a wealthy family, he was just a regular kid. He lacked the resources to focus solely on cultivation. Zhang Bao would likely end up as a martial apprentice, get a stable job, and grow old, or perish in some beast tide. Zhang Bao, who's the most talented person in our academy? Tian asked quietly. He'd only been around for 10 days, while Zhang Bao had been here for over a month. Zhang Bao knew the ropes and had good relationships with many people. The most talented? Zhang Bao seemed puzzled by Tian's question, but he answered anyway. Talent's a closely guarded secret. Nobody brags about it. But you can usually gauge it by how fast people progress. Our 5th academy isn't exactly top tier. The really gifted ones go to the 1st academy. But we do have one standout. Who? Tian asked, curious. Chendong. Zhang Bao said dramatically. He comes from an ordinary family, both his parents are normal people. He joined our academy a month ago. In just half a month, he became a martial apprentice and was taken on as a disciple by our dean. Chendong doesn't train with us anymore. The dean tutors him privately. Tian's eyes lit up. He was certain that Chendong's talent must be something special. Otherwise, the dean wouldn't have taken him under his wing. The dean of the 5th academy was an elite martial artist at the peak level, far surpassing ordinary peak martial artists. Ordinary martial artists were like ants to him. In the Linhai base, the dean of the 5th academy was a big shot. He wouldn't bother with a prime talent, and the genius the dean valued was at least a medium talent, because only medium talent becomes a peak martial artist and has hope of becoming a great martial artist. How can I get in touch with Chendong? Tian wondered. Just then, a commotion broke out. Chendong's here. Wow, Chendong, the dean's new student, showed up at training ground number 3. Isn't he getting private lessons from the dean? What's he doing here? That the students stared at Chendong with envy and jealousy. In this era, talent was everything, and Chendong was a figure they could never hope to be. Tian spotted Chendong and slowly moved closer. Without attracting attention, he got within 3 meters of Chendong and activated his copying talent. Human, Chendong, cultivation talent, medium. Bingo! Medium talent. Tian suppressed his excitement and started plotting. Chendong, I heard you're the dean's disciple. How strong are you now? A student asked, gazing up at Chendong in awe. I can lift 200 pounds already. Chendong declared, puffing out his chest. A collective gasp went through the crowd. You only needed to lift 100 pounds to become a martial apprentice, and Chendong has 200 pounds. At this rate, he'd be a martial artist in no time. Show off. Tian understood why Chendong had come. He couldn't resist flaunting his newfound success. It was the same nouveau riche mentality. Chendong, can I get your autograph? Chendong, would you sign my paper? Students pulled out pens and paper, hoping for Chendong's signature. Getting an autograph from a future martial artist would be an honor. If Qin became an elite martial artist like the dean, that signature could fetch enough to cover someone's living expenses for months. Sure, I'll sign for everyone. Qin said. Qin was on cloud 9, and signed autographs for other students one by one. Tian also crowded in, not for an autograph, but to copy Qin talent. Touched, the moment Tian touched Qin left hand, he copied Qin cultivation talent and quickly pulled back his arm. The whole process went unnoticed. It was normal to brush against Qin in the crowd. Medium cultivation talent copied successfully. Fuse now. Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is it safe to fuse? Tian didn't want to fuse right then. He had no idea what the effects would be and figured it was best to do it somewhere private. The academy wasn't strict. They didn't really care about the students' attendance. You could skip classes if you wanted. Honestly, once students learned the body forging method, they mostly practiced on their own. The teachers at the academy were too busy to give everyone individual attention. That's how the fifth college was. The first college was a whole different story. The first college was a real academy, while the others were basically just big martial arts gyms. Back home, his sister, Yiyu, was studying martial arts from books their parents had left behind. She read them in her free time to get ready for her martial arts training in a couple of years. Tian went into his bedroom and locked the door. Fusion, boom, an odd force surged through Tian's body, washing over him. Pain. Unspeakable pain flooded his mind. He felt like he was about to explode. Damn, I didn't expect fusing a copied talent to hurt this much. Tian cursed under his breath. Even knowing how painful it was, he wouldn't have hesitated. This was a game-changing talent, like a rebirth. What was a little pain compared to that? Brother, are you okay? Yiyu seemed to hear him and asked softly from outside the door. I'm fine. Tian gritted his teeth, trying not to yell. He didn't want to cry out in pain. How would he explain that? Thankfully, the pain didn't last long. After 10 minutes, it started to fade, replaced by a wave of comfort, like the afterglow from lovemaking. Tian immediately checked his talent. Name, Tian, talent, medium. Seeing the information on the screen, Tian couldn't help but get excited. Finally, he wasn't a weakling anymore. His talent had really changed, and that meant his future was wide open. Martial artists, elite martial artists, and grand martial artists weren't his limits anymore. If he kept absorbing new talents, he could become something even greater. 1 month. One more month before I can copy another talent. That's what he got from his talent. In other words, he could copy another talent in a month. Let's see how much faster I can train with this medium talent. Tian couldn't wait to try it out. He'd already tried the 18 movements of the body forging method after first learning them yesterday, but the effect had been tiny. He just felt a little numb. If he didn't have such a strong will, he wouldn't have felt anything at all. That's why he'd gone to class again today, to see if he was doing something wrong, but he wasn't. Which meant his training speed was just incredibly slow. He wouldn't become a martial artist in a year with that kind of progress. That is, unless he copied a new talent. First movement. Second movement. Tian practiced the movements of the body forging method in his room. They looked weird, but they were the best basic exercises humanity had come up with. It took half an hour to complete all 18 movements. Only then would it actually forge the body. Soon, half an hour had passed, and Tian had perfected the movements. When he finished the 18th movement, a wave of heat suddenly flowed through his body, slowly reaching every part of him, refining it. This heat was his body's hidden potential, and the body forging method was about tapping into it. Overdoing it could be harmful. You could only do the body forging method 10 times a day, max, and only 3 times in a row. That was based on the experience of countless people. This is what medium talent does. It's way better than my weak talent. No wonder Qin became a martial artist in just half a month, and got 200 pounds of strength in 1 month. Yi Tian was happy with his medium talent, but he knew there were higher levels. The speed those geniuses improved at was something he couldn't imagine right now, so, he had to work harder. When the heat from the first forging session faded, Yi Tian started the second. After doing the body forging method 3 times in a row, Yi Tian was covered in sweat, and there were traces of black gunk on his skin. Yi Tian took a shower and then ate more than a dozen steamed buns. The body forging method used up a lot of energy, so he had to eat a lot to replenish it. A month later, a grove at the 5th Academy. It was almost evening, and the place was deserted. Yi Tian was training there. He came here often. Phew, that's 10 body forging method sessions for today. Yi Tian stopped and walked to the number 3 martial arts training ground. There were a bunch of stones there, weighing 100, 200, and even 300 pounds. If you could lift a 100-pound stone over your head for 3 seconds, it meant you had 100 pounds of strength. Lifting a 200-pound stone meant you had 200 pounds of strength. It was the easiest way to test it. Yi Tian had gotten 100 pounds of strength on the 8th day of training and become a martial arts apprentice. I should be able to lift 200 pounds today. Chendong's been getting special lessons from the dean, so he's improving fast. But I'm not doing too bad myself. My talent is a mix of medium and weak, so it should be a little better than Chendong's. Plus, I've been working hard all month, doing 10 body forging method sessions every day. It's getting more painful the more I do it. Most people probably couldn't do it 10 times a day. Someone like Chendong would probably collapse after 7 or 8 sessions. So I might be improving faster than Chendong. Yi Tian thought to himself. After resting and recovering his strength, he walked over to the 200-pound stone. Up. He gripped the stone and lifted it with all his might. He lifted the 200-pound stone over his head and held it there for 3 seconds. Yi Tian dropped the stone and collapsed on the ground. He knew he had 200 pounds of strength now. This is a good start. With my medium talent, I might be able to become a martial artist in a year. Yi Tian clenched his fists, excited. After resting for more than 10 minutes, it was getting dark and Yi Tian left the academy and headed home. Walking down the street, the shops were still open, and the base was dimly lit. There was no electricity in this era. Apparently, some of the bigger bases were able to use yuan force instead, building magical devices that brought back the good old days, but that was big bases. Small bases like the coastal base didn't have that kind of tech. Everyone used oil lamps or candles, and Yi Tian felt like he'd gone back in time. Suddenly. Run! The monsters are coming. Fear spread through the streets. Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Beast. Yi Tian froze. He'd heard stories about the horrifying power of fierce beasts, how they could easily wipe out regular folks, and how only trained warriors stood a chance against them. The seaside base was surrounded by walls, but they weren't always enough. Sometimes, these beasts broke through. For anyone caught in their path, it was a death sentence. Gotta get home. Yi Tian thought of his sister, Yi Yu. Their house wasn't far, and those flimsy walls wouldn't hold anything back. He was seriously worried. As he ran, he glimpsed a silver-white blur darting down the street, leaving a trail of dead in its wake. That's insane speed. Yi Tian was stunned. It was faster than the eye could track, even from this distance. Up close, you'd be dead before you even saw it coming. If I run into that thing, I'm toast. Yi Tian thought. He wasn't about to imagine he was some chosen one, immune to danger. He knew better than to pick a fight with that thing. When things get too hot, get out. Yi Tian wasn't stupid. He ran, but he was too slow. The beast seemed to be headed straight for him. Yi Tian knew he wasn't the target, but if he got in the way, the beast wouldn't hesitate to rip him apart. Damn monster, killing people in the base. A group of warriors, led by a middle-aged man, rushed in and surrounded the beast. Yes. It's the Wind Wolf Squad. Someone yelled. The Wind Wolf Squad. Yi Tian knew their reputation. They were a well-known outfit around here. Their captain, Wind Wolf himself, was a late-stage martial arts master. with over a dozen early and mid-stage fighters under his command. The crowd breathed a sigh of relief, some even getting excited. "Back up. This thing's dangerous," Captain Wind Wolf barked at the gawkers. His warning snapped people to attention. A fight between warriors and a beast wasn't a spectator sport. One wrong move and you were dead, too fast for even the warriors to save you. "Retreat! Retreat! Retreat!" The crowd scattered, and Tian backed off as well, but he wasn't about to leave. He wanted to see what a real martial artist could do. The fight began fast. Captain Wind Wolf swung his sword at the beast, the blade flashing in the night. It was clear he meant business. The street was gouged open 3 meters long, but the beast was too quick, dodging the blow. That's power. It sliced right through solid stone. Imagine what that would do to a person. Is that what a warrior can really do? Tian felt a surge of longing. The Wind Wolf squad closed in, weapons drawn, but their faces were grim. Suddenly, one of them was sent flying, a bloody gash across his chest. "Xiao Bai," Captain Wind Wolf glanced over, worried. But instead of checking on the injured man, he pressed his attack. The beast might have taken down one warrior, but it was still outnumbered and soon bore wounds of its own. "Watch out! It's trying to break through," Captain Wind Wolf shouted. He was right. The beast, seeing its chance, became a silver streak, tearing through the encirclement and trying to escape. Then, an arrow flew from out of nowhere and struck true. The beast collapsed to the street, revealing its true form. A silver marten. Tian could see it clearly now, a meter long, with razor-sharp claws and blood-red eyes. Xiao Yu's shot hit it hard. "Now's our chance. Finish it, and we can skip hunting for a month," Captain Wind Wolf yelled, pumped. Clearly, this silver marten was a valuable prize. The wounded beast was no match for the Wind Wolf squad, but it wasn't giving up yet. Suddenly, a silver glow erupted from its body, its power spiking. "Careful! It's boosting its bloodline, about to explode," Captain Wind Wolf roared, warning his team. Boom! The warriors scrambled back, not wanting to be caught in the blast, but the silver marten, instead of exploding, charged straight into the crowd. The warriors' faces went white. They understood the beast's plan. "Everybody, scatter," Captain Wind Wolf yelled at the crowd, but the silver marten was too fast. Bloodline boosted, it was even faster. The civilians didn't stand a chance. In a heartbeat, it was among them, a blur of claws and teeth. People were tossed into the air, dead or dying. Suddenly, another arrow flew, launched by Xiao Yu, hidden in the shadows. Poof! The arrow pierced the beast's body, going right through an old wound. The silver marten, already on its last legs, finally died, its life fading away. The crowd scattered, none daring to get close, but one young man walked up to the beast and gently touched its fur. "Kid, that's risky, touching a wild beast like that." Captain Wind Wolf walked over, laughing. "First time I've seen one, couldn't resist checking it out." The young man said sheepishly. Captain Wind Wolf nodded, pleased. "Good kid. I see you're already a martial arts apprentice. At your age, you've got potential. Maybe you'll become a real warrior someday. When you do, I'll let you join the squad." "Thank you, Captain Wind Wolf." The young man was thrilled. The Wind Wolf squad didn't hang around, hauling away the silver marten's corpse and heading out. The young man, left standing alone in the street, started giggling. The others just shook their heads, thinking he was an idiot. Becoming a warrior wasn't easy. Captain Wind Wolf was just being nice, but the young man wasn't laughing about that. That young man was Tian. "Ha! I can't believe I copied my second talent from a fierce beast," Tian exclaimed with glee. Chapter 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When that silver moon marten bit the dust, it was practically breathing down Tian's neck. He was scared stiff. If it hadn't kicked the bucket, it probably would have been curtains for him. Talk about a close call. Seeing it was dead, a wild idea popped into his head. He activated his replication talent to check it out. Creature, silver moon marten, bloodline potential, low tier, speed talent, Basic.ye Tian was floored. Fierce beasts evolve mainly through their bloodlines, like a person's innate talent for cultivation. If your bloodline's weak, you're not going to become a powerhouse. This Martin's bloodline was only second-rate. Based on that, it should have been about as strong as a rookie martial artist. But it could easily smack down a martial artist, and even the Wind Wolf pack leader, who was pretty advanced, found it a tough customer. That was all thanks to its speed talent. That speed made the Silver Moon Marten a serious threat. Otherwise, a run-of-the-mill low-level beast wouldn't stand a chance against that many martial artists. Now, Yi Tian had copied that speed talent. Once he merged with it, his speed would blow away anyone at his level. Going up against stronger opponents wouldn't just be a pipe dream anymore. Time to head home. Yi Tian bolted back toward his place. He ate dinner with his sister, then locked himself in his room, ready to try merging with the talent. Normally, you have to be a full-fledged martial artist to awaken talents besides your cultivation potential, but my copy talent breaks the rules. It should be safe to merge with the speed talent. Yi Tian took a deep breath. Whatever. Let's do this. Yi Tian stuffed a rag in his mouth and started the process. Boom. The pain was second only to what he felt merging with his medium-level cultivation talent. Yi Tian, already braced for the worst, just had to grit his teeth and bear it. 10 minutes later, the pain faded, replaced by an exhilarating rush. Yi Tian knew he'd done it. He'd successfully merged with the speed talent. He focused his thoughts and checked his stats. Human, Yi Tian, cultivation talent, medium, speed talent, basic. That he was dead tired and still shaken from the beast attack, so Yi Tian quickly drifted off to sleep. First thing the next morning, Yi Tian rushed to the academy's training grounds. Not a soul around. Time to test this speed. Yi Tian activated his speed talent. His body blurred, and he zipped away like a phantom. Holy crap! Yi Tian was blown away. After repeated tests, he confirmed his speed had tripled. Just the basic talent gave him that much of a boost, putting him almost on par with an average martial artist. And as his cultivation improved, his speed would only get faster. They say people with multiple talents are destined for greatness. With just a basic speed talent, I could probably take on most martial artists. If I keep this up, I might be able to go toe-to-toe with the real pros before long. Yi Tian was pumped, but he knew the real foundation was cultivation. Without a solid base, all the talent in the world wouldn't amount to much against a true powerhouse. I've got 1 month left to copy another talent. This month, the goal is to buff up and hit 300 pounds of strength. Yi Tian set a small goal with a purpose. Yi Tian threw himself into training. He also casually mentioned to some classmates that he could practice the body forging method. A lot of students his age were already doing it, but it didn't attract much attention. Besides training, Yi Tian also checked out the talents of the other students at the 5th Academy. Mostly duds. Aside from Qindong, the best were just basic talents. Before he knew it, a month was up, and Yi Tian hit his goal, boasting 300 pounds of raw power. My speed's still not fast enough. Wish I could speed up my cultivation too. Yi Tian sighed. As he left the academy, a voice called out, "Yo, Yi Tian, wait up." Yi Tian turned and saw Zhang Bao. He stopped. "You're a martial apprentice now, right?" Zhang Bao asked, lowering his voice. "Yep." Yi Tian nodded. Getting to that level wasn't hard. No reason to hide it, as long as he kept his strength under wraps. "Want to level up faster?" Zhang Bao pressed. "Got away." Yi Tian perked up. "Heard of beast blood?" Zhang Bao asked. "Duh." Yi Tian nodded. His folks were martial artists, so he knew a lot of things most people didn't. Beast blood is packed with crazy energy. If you drink it while training with the body forging method, it turbocharges your body's development. Too bad his parents were gone. No way to get his hands on any. Look, our talents aren't anything special. If we take it slow, we might hit the martial artist level when we're old and gray. But beast blood changes everything. Maybe we can reach that level by 20. Even if our talent caps us out, we can still live a good life as martial artists. Zhang Bao was practically drooling. True, but how do we get it? Yi Tian was bummed. He'd love some beast blood, but he was clueless about how to score some. Okay, we're tight, so I'll let you in on something. The 5 academies are about to kick off a trial. The bigwigs have unlocked a small section of the wilderness. They've cleared out the fierce beasts, leaving just their descendants. These beasts are weaker than their parents. Even ordinary people with weapons can handle them, so martial apprentices are more than capable. You can trade valuable stuff you get from the beasts for their blood. I hear the top dog gets a mid-tier beast blood reward. Zhang Bao was green with envy. Mid-tier beast blood. Yi Tian's ears perked up. Only elite martial artists can kill mid-tier fierce beasts. With that blood, he'd have a shot at becoming a martial artist in 6 months. How do you know all this? Yi Tian frowned. He hadn't heard a thing. Zhang Bao puffed up with pride. I know an older student who can lift 500 pounds. He spilled the beans. But this trial's a bit risky, so the academy's keeping it quiet from the newbies. Look, you know how good beast blood is. My folks drained their savings to buy me some low-tier stuff, and now I'm a martial apprentice. Your talent's way better than mine. It'll work even better on you. Let's sign up together, form a group. We might just score some beast blood. Zhang Bao wheedled. Am I the only one you've asked? Yi Tian inquired. Of course not. We just got started. How are we supposed to compete with the heavy hitters alone? I've already got 8 recruits. They're all on board, just waiting for you. Zhang Bao grinned, confident he had him hooked. Sorry, I'm not really into teaming up. Yi Tian shook his head. Fine, whatever. Zhang Bao looked disappointed and wandered off. He was just asking. If Yi Tian said no, who cares? He was just a newbie, but Zhang Bao didn't realize Yi Tian wasn't refusing the trial. He just didn't want to join a group. This trial might be my big chance. Yi Tian murmured to himself. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alright, Yi Tian, you really want to do this trial thing? Look, technically, yeah, anyone who's hit martial artist level can sign up. But honestly, unless you're bench pressing, like, 500 pounds, it's a bad idea. You could get yourself killed out there. Yu Cheng, the 5th Academy's instructor, was trying to talk Yi Tian out of it. He'd seen guys like Yi Tian before. They thought they'd struck gold with some fierce beast blood, but they were kidding themselves. Even without the really nasty creatures, that wild area had plenty of beasts strong enough to wipe the floor with most martial arts apprentices. Fresh-faced students were like ants to those things unless they had backup or heavy artillery. But teacher, I'm part of a group, Yi Tian pointed out, strength in numbers, right? We should be able to make a decent haul. Yi Tian said this deliberately. Alright, suit yourself. But you gotta sign a waiver. A real life or death contract. Once you're in, if you kick the bucket out in the boonies, the 5th Academy ain't paying out anything. Teacher Yu Cheng emphasized. Got it. Yi Tian signed without hesitation. 10 days from now, be at the Academy's martial arts training ground number 5 before 8 a.m. An instructor will lead you from there. Teacher Yu Cheng told him. Yes, sir, Yi Tian confirmed, registration complete. Yi Tian let out a sigh of relief. He wasn't about to let the next 10 days go to waste. Sure, he was confident, but he was still green and needed to prep, like buying some weapons and gear. In this day and age, there weren't restrictions on firearms. Anyone could carry them. And weapons came in tiers. Standard steel made your run-of-the-mill weapons. But those forged from Yuan force materials. Those were prime for channeling a martial artist's Yuan power. Those weapons were called Yuan soldiers. Yi Tian couldn't afford a Yuan soldier, and honestly, he didn't need one. A basic Yuan soldier was about as effective as a regular weapon, but with a few added Yuan force quirks. Hitting up the weapon shop, Yi Tian snagged a fine iron blade, a bow, and a quiver full of arrows. All this cost him 5 grand. That was enough to live on for a year. He'd started with 20 grand, now he was down to 15. But those weapons were a must. Before he knew it, 10 days had flown by. Yi Tian kept the trial a secret from his sister, Yi Yu. He just told her the academy was running some event, a 3-day thing. He'd be back before she knew it. Yi Yu didn't think twice. If she had any idea he was headed for the Ono district, there's no way she'd let him go. The 5th Academy, Martial Arts Training Ground number 5. When Yi Tian arrived, he spotted close to 100 students. And that wasn't everyone. He figured at least 150 were in on the trial, maybe more. Looks like fierce beast blood is a siren song for the less gifted, Yi Tian thought to himself. Yi Tian. You're actually showing up. Zhang Bao's voice cut through the air. Yi Tian turned to Zhang Bao and said dryly, never said I wouldn't. Just didn't want to team up. You found a master to take you under his wing? Zhang Bao was floored. Yi Tian didn't respond, but Zhang Bao was already green with envy. He was convinced Yi Tian had hooked up with a big shot, which explained the solo act. Yi Tian didn't bother correcting him. A little misunderstanding never hurt anyone. After waiting half an hour, most of the students had arrived, totaling around 160. Most of these students were solid, but not top tier, and they tended to be older, some even in their 20s. There were very few young apprentices like Yi Tian. Being young meant being weak. With this many students, some weren't coming back, but in this era, being weak was a death sentence anyway. Remember the Silver Moon mink incident? Regular folks got caught in the crossfire. Disaster struck out of nowhere. Strength was everything. Alright, everyone, pile into the buses. An instructor called out. Soon, several buses like those from the history books pulled up. The students had only seen these relics in textbooks. Teacher, aren't the laws of physics all messed up now? How can a 100-year-old gas guzzler even work? These are the latest models. Yuanli powered. The Linhai base bigwigs traded for this tech from some major base. This is brand new stuff. Only martial artists can afford them now, but give it time. You'll see these things all over the place. A car powered by Yuanli. That the penny dropped for the students. They'd heard whispers of Yuan force-powered tech, but they didn't realize the Linhai base had it too. The trainees piled onto the buses, and they took off towards the city's edge. An hour later, they passed through the city gates and into the wilderness. A wave of panic washed over some of the students. The wildlands were crawling with fierce beasts, and these warriors were out of their depth. Relax, the lead instructor reassured them with a grin. The Linhai base cleared this area recently. Nothing dangerous within a 3-mile radius. We're headed to a smaller contained area a mile from here. That seemed to calm the students down. Plus, there were 10 teachers on each bus to keep them safe. Each teacher was a martial artist, so they'd be fine. Before long, a valley came into view. This valley's our destination. The teacher announced. A bunch of other buses were already parked at the entrance. Other academies. Oh look, it's the 5th Academy. Ha! That garbage dump even sent people. You trying for a complete wipeout? The 5th Academy students have probably never even seen blood, right? Unlike us 1st Academy students, who get to practice on captive fierce beasts and even tame ones. We're in a different league. Bet they'll cry the second they see a real beast. Alright. 5th Academy's students might not be top tier, but their dean's a big shot in the Linhai base. Ease up with the trash talk. We don't want to get on their bad side. The taunting came, of course, from the 1st Academy students. The other academies weren't much better off than the 5th. They had no room to talk. Damn, those 1st Academy jerks are so arrogant. That the 5th Academy students grumbled under their breath, but all they could do was grumble. They weren't about to pick a fight with the First Academy students. They knew the difference. After getting off the bus, Tian's eyes burned as he focused on the First Academy students. The students at the First Academy have at least basic talents. Maybe there are some with medium talents. My copy talent can be copied again. Maybe I can copy a good talent this time. Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The students from the 5 major academies had arrived and were gathered at the valley entrance, waiting for the trial to begin. Tian wandered around, seemingly aimless, but he was secretly using his copying talent to check out everyone, focusing on the students from the First Academy. Basic cultivation talent. Basic cultivation talent. Basic cultivation talent. Tian noticed that most of the First Academy students had basic talents. There weren't many of them, only about 30. Only 5 left to check. Tian approached the 5 students and scanned their talents. Jackpot. They all have medium cultivation talents. Tian was surprised. These 5 were clearly the First Academy's top prospects, probably at the peak of the martial artist stage, one step away from becoming true martial artists. Copying a medium cultivation talent won't boost my current strength much. At best, it'll make my own medium talent a bit better, but that won't help in the trial. If I could copy a combat-related talent, that would be huge, Tian thought. Unfortunately, after searching, he only found a few weak or inferior attribute talents, all unawakened and impossible to copy. Suddenly, a young man with a knife strapped to his back walked up to the First Academy's 5 medium talent students. Mo Xiaobei, I'm challenging you. The young man pointed his knife at Mo Xiaobei. Who is this kid? Tian was surprised. This guy from the Second Academy was challenging a top student from the First Academy. He had guts. I wonder what kind of talent he has. Tian was curious. He hadn't bothered checking the Second Academy students, but this young man must have something up his sleeve, so Tian moved closer. The young man ignored Tian, focusing only on Mo Xiaobei. Li Yunxing, I hear you're the Second Academy's #1 sword prodigy, but no sword technique can bridge a strength gap. I've got 990 pounds of force behind me, and you only have 300. You lost last time, want to lose again? Mo Xiaobei sneered. I'm at 300 pounds now, Li Yunxing retorted. Ha, what's the difference between 300 and 200 pounds when you're facing 990? Mo Xiaobei scoffed. The other 4 top students looked at Li Yunxing with disdain. They knew he was stuck and would never be their equal. You. Li Yunxing, frustrated, was about to make a move. No fighting allowed here. Violators are disqualified from the trial. A teacher's voice boomed. Li Yunxing, looking scared, lowered his knife and backed down. This trial was important, and he didn't want to blow it. He turned and walked away. Hey man, I admire your sword skills, wanna be friends? Tian approached with a friendly smile and held out his hand. You are. Li Yunxing was confused but shook Tian's hand. I'm Tian. After a quick chat, Tian walked away, leaving Li Yunxing scratching his head. As he walked, Tian replayed what he'd just seen. Human, Li Yunxing, cultivation talent, inferior, sword talent, medium. His sword talent was as innate as his cultivation talent, so it was copyable. Tian decided to use his copy on the sword talent. If he didn't and Li Yunxing died, he'd lose the chance. He didn't hesitate to copy the medium sword talent. Finding a secluded spot behind a rock, Tian began to fuse the talent. Boom. A sharp pain jolted through him as a force transformed his body. 10 minutes later, the pain subsided. Tian checked his stats. Human, Tian, cultivation talent, medium, speed talent, elementary. Sword talent, medium. Sword technique. Tian grabbed his knife and felt a difference. Before, the knife felt like a dead weight. Now, it felt alive. He instinctively knew how to wield the knife for maximum impact. This is the power of a medium sword talent. Even without speed, the sword talent will let me go up against martial arts students who are way stronger than me. Too bad I don't have time to learn actual sword techniques. Yi Tian knew that learning some real swordplay would boost his fighting power. Still, he was satisfied with the medium sword talent. Wiping his sweat, Yi Tian rejoined the crowd. The trial began soon after. Everyone, including Yi Tian, was serious. First place, 3 medium-grade beast blood plus $100,000. Second place, 1 medium beast blood plus $100,000. Third place, 3 low-level beast blood plus $50,000. Fourth to 10th place, 1 low-level beast blood. Ranking was based on points, earned by bringing back specific parts of designated beasts. The trial lasted 3 days in the small field area. For this group of martial arts students, the trial was a challenge. All martial arts students enter the trial area in turn. A teacher announced. The first academy students entered the valley first, disappearing into the trial. Then came the second academy, the third academy, and finally the fifth academy. Can't see anyone anymore. Yi Tian entered the wilderness. The trees and rough terrain quickly hid the other students. Although it was just a small, carved-out field, the area was still huge, no smaller than the coastal base. Yi Tian soon encountered his first beast. P.S. Please vote, thanks. Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Spotted snake. Yi Tian stared at the massive 6-foot snake about 15 feet in front of him. These snakes weren't particularly tough, most trainees could handle them. The key was avoiding getting wrapped up. Once ensnared, even a skilled fighter with hundreds of pounds of force would struggle to break free. Whoosh, the spotted snake lunged, attacking Yi Tian. Yi Tian didn't bother dodging. With his enhanced speed, evading the snake would be easy, but unnecessary. Boom, in a flash, the snake froze mid-air, crashing to the ground where it writhed briefly before dying. A closer look would reveal a precise cut to the snake's 7-inch mark, a deadly strike delivered by Yi Tian's knife. Too easy. Yi Tian shook his head. He then removed the snake's eyes, a required item for the trial, proving he'd killed a spotted snake, worth 1 point. Spotted snakes were the most dangerous creatures in this small wilderness area. Rumor had it that a giant, monstrous snake once roamed here, and these spotted snakes were its descendants. One day, a group of elite warriors teamed up to take down the giant snake. Then, they cleared out the other monsters, turning the area into a small wilderness training ground. That's the gossip the teacher shared on the way here. Anyway, how true it was, who knew? Before he knew it, most of the day was gone, and dusk was approaching. Didn't get much today. Yi Tian opened his pack and counted his haul. The combined value of his collected monster materials was only about 23 points. That's decent for an average student, but not nearly enough to compete for the top 3, or even crack the top 10. Night was dangerous. The darkness made it harder to spot monsters, making it easy to become prey. It was best to avoid hunting at night. Sure, you might find a spotted snake in a tree, but as long as you were careful and stayed alert, you'd probably be fine. Even if a snake did attack, Yi Tian's reflexes and speed were more than enough to deal with it. The night passed without incident. The next morning, after a roasted rabbit breakfast, Yi Tian resumed his hunt. He ventured deeper into the wilderness. More powerful monsters lived there, and bagging one was worth 5 or 6 points, making it far more efficient than sticking to the outer areas. Help! Somebody, please save us! Faint cries for help reached Yi Tian's ears. He also heard the distinct sound of wolves howling. Someone ran into a wolf pack. Yi Tian muttered to himself. After a moment's thought, he ran toward the sounds. It wasn't that he wanted to rescue anyone. Wolves were worth good points, especially fawn wolves, which were worth 10 points each. Hunting them was a far better use of his time than chasing ordinary monsters. Soon, Yi Tian reached a clearing. A dozen or so fawn wolves were surrounding 7 or 8 students. Several bodies lay on the ground. Zhang Bao. Yi Tian recognized one of the students. It was Zhang Bao, an acquaintance, but right now, Zhang Bao was in bad shape. He was covered in blood, his face pale, desperately waving an empty bow. He was at the end of his rope. Yi Tian wasn't surprised by Zhang Bao's situation. After all, Zhang Bao and his buddies were weak. Even with a group of them, they were just asking for trouble if they ran into anything strong. They'd basically be delivering themselves on a platter. Tian knew from the start that this group didn't stand a chance of getting their hands on any monster blood. He just didn't say anything. Everyone deserved to dream a little. Tian notched an arrow and aimed at a fawn wolf ****. The arrow struck a fawn wolf, but missed its mark. Still, it wounded the wolf ****. The fawn wolves spotted Tian and charged. Zhang Bao and the others saw Tian approach. For a moment, they felt a glimmer of hope, but that quickly faded as they recognized him. Zhang Bao knew Tian, and knew his abilities. He had just started martial arts training. Tian, get out of here. You can't handle these fawn wolves. Zhang Bao yelled. That fatty's not so bad, looking out for me. Tian thought, feeling a touch of warmth. He actually wanted to save them. If Tian went all out, he could probably wipe out the wolves in no time. But that would expose too much. Better to hold back a little. Tian decided. Fawn wolves were tough, as strong as a skilled fighter with hundreds of pounds of force. A straight-up fight would be risky, so Tian relied on his superior sword skills and a bit of his speed. He kept himself moving at 1.5 times his normal speed, dodging and weaving around the fanged predators. Using his average knife skills, he managed to land deadly blows at key moments. His blade sliced across the neck of a fawn wolf, killing it instantly. No matter how the wolves attacked, Tian seemed to anticipate their every move, dodging with ease, and every strike he landed took down another wolf. Soon, over a dozen fawn wolf bodies littered the ground. Tian was splattered with their blood. You okay? Tian sheathed his knife and looked at Zhang Bao and the others. And no problem. Zhang Bao's eyes were wide. He swallowed hard and stammered. I took out these wolves. I'm taking their fangs, okay? Tian said flatly. Yeah, sure. The others nodded quickly. How could they object? Tian had single-handedly wiped out a pack of these deadly wolves. He had saved their lives. No way they were going to ask him to share the spoils. The wolf fangs were proof of the kill. Of course, Tian didn't need all the fangs. He only needed the two largest ones from each wolf, more than a dozen wolf fangs. Altogether, they filled a big bag. Luckily, Tian had 300 pounds of strength. Carrying that little extra weight was no problem. Here's a piece of advice. You guys should head back as soon as you can. You're not strong enough to get your hands on any monster blood. Don't get yourselves killed. You only get one life, and there will be other chances to get monster blood later. Tian urged. Then, he turned to leave. Suddenly, Zhang Bao's expression changed. Tian, with your skills and the wolf fangs you have now, you should be able to snag some monster blood. But if you're aiming for a good ranking, I've got some information for you. I don't know if I should tell you. Spill it. Tian said, intrigued. A pseudo-monster spotted snake has appeared in this wilderness area. Students from the First Academy are hunting it. That snake's worth 500 points, Zhang said through gritted teeth. He didn't know if telling Tian this was a good idea, but he'd said it anyway. What? A pseudo-monster spotted snake? Tian was stunned, and, of course, he was hooked by the promise of 500 points if he could get his hands on the eyes of that snake. First place in the trial would be a lock. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is that for real? Tian asked. Totally. Zhang Bao confirmed. We saw them from a distance. The First Academy students were trying to take down a 30-foot-long python, but they blew it. There must be even more students swarming it now. Which way? Southeast. Zhang Bao pointed. Whoosh. Tian bolted, vanishing in a flash. Zhang Bao watched him go, then sighed. I figured Tian was about my level, but he's been holding out on us. A guy with his talent is a lock to become a real fighter, maybe even elite. He tried to ignore his envy. This is an age where talent calls the shots. With his second-rate potential, he'd have to bust his butt just to reach the early stages of martial arts. Let's head back. Zhang Bao said with resignation. Back? No more hunting? One of the trainees asked. Forget hunting. Even if we teamed up, we wouldn't stand a chance at getting any savage beast blood. I should have known all along, this trial is just a setup for the top students from the 5 academies. They just want to churn out some fighters ASAP. Do you think those big shots care about us regular martial arts trainees? They wouldn't lose any sleep over us dropping like flies. Zhang Bao gave a bitter chuckle, the others stayed silent, clearly agreeing, this world can be brutal. To the strong, the lives of average people and martial arts trainees don't matter. They call this trial a test for all apprentices, but it's really just a showcase for the top dogs. Looking dejected, the group of 7 or 8 turned and walked out of the training ground. After running for a while, Tian stopped. He was carrying a lot of gear, and even though it wasn't too heavy, it was throwing off his balance. He couldn't exactly fight with all this strapped to his back. He had 2 choices. Go back to the valley entrance and trade this stuff in for points, which would waste a ton of time, or hide it and grab it later. Gotta bury it first. Tian quickly dug a hole, stashed his gear, and covered it up. The wilderness was huge. The odds of anyone finding it were slim, and regular animals wouldn't be interested. All set, Tian sped off southeast. Boom. In the distance, the sounds of battle echoed, loud enough to tell him it was a serious fight. Could that python be getting swarmed again? Tian guessed that almost beast python was strong, but this time there were a lot of martial arts students at their peak. If they really went all out, that python wouldn't stand a chance. Hope it pulls through, Tian muttered, secretly rooting for the beast. 30 seconds later, Tian arrived, but the situation wasn't what he'd expected. No way. Tian's eyes widened. In the arena, a dozen or so fighters were attacking an injured python, but this one wasn't 30 feet long like Zhang Bao said, it was closer to 40. It's a real savage beast. This python has evolved, but it's the weakest kind. Tian assessed, savage beasts aren't ranked by size. This python might be huge, but its attacks were basic, and it wasn't as strong as other savage beasts. But how did this python become a savage beast? Tian wasn't the only one wondering. The other students were scratching their heads too, but nobody had time to think about it. All they wanted was to take down this beast. That almost beast python was worth a measly 500 points. This savage beast python? At least 1,000. Plus, it was a genuine savage beast. Once they killed it, the blood inside would be enough for a lot of students to absorb and power up. You could say this python was a goldmine. Luckily, this python had just evolved, so it wasn't much stronger than a martial arts master at their peak. Otherwise, these students wouldn't dare go near it. Even so, the students kept getting injured and pulling back, one by one. Tian hung back, watching. After about 10 minutes, only 5 apprentices were left standing. These were the first academy's 5 most talented students with average cultivation skills, but they were covered in cuts and bruises. The python was in worse shape, peppered with arrows and cuts. There was even a sword gash on its forehead. It looked miserable. Suddenly, the python unleashed its bloodline power, swinging its massive tail and knocking the 5 students flying. Then it took off. With its bloodline activated, it had the speed of a normal savage beast. Unless you were a martial artist, you couldn't keep up. The students tried to give chase but quickly realized they were outmatched. Damn it, it got away again. Keep chasing. It's badly injured and can't go far, Mo Xiaobei yelled, frustrated, but they didn't know that a figure was tailing them in the shadows. Yes. After I activate my speed talent, I can definitely catch it. Tian said excitedly. He followed the python as it turned and limped into a cave. Tian hesitated for a moment, then went in after it. With his speed, he could retreat if he ran into trouble. the cave was deep and sloped downward. After what felt like forever, Tian reached a cavern. The python was there, barely alive, crawling deeper inside. Without a word, Tian activated his speed, pulled out a fine iron knife, and slashed at the python. Even with his limited strength, he quickly finished it off. Gotta grab the blood, Tian remembered. He pulled out a flask and stabbed the python in the heart. The savage beast blood flowed into the container, drop by drop. This python had just evolved, so most of the blood wasn't pure savage beast blood. Only the blood from the heart was the real deal. So, Tian only collected the heart blood, ignoring the rest. Soon, the flask was full. That's like 5 low-grade savage beast bloods. Jackpot, Tian pumped his fist.